Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Mr. Minister, thank you for being here. Gilles Roth, the Minister of Finance from Luxembourg. It is a great pleasure that we get to start this second day here at Dubai FinTech Festival. And I wanted to start with this very broad question. You know, the title of our conversation is called Strengthening Global Growth, Promoting Economic Cooperation and Prosperity. When you think about strengthening global growth, how do you look at that from the perspective of being the Minister of Finance from Luxembourg? When you're asked that question, what goes through your mind immediately?
Thank you so much. It's a great honor for me to be here and to attend this event. You know, I'm the Minister of Finance from a small country in size and population. Luxembourg has 675,000 people, but we are the second largest investment hub in the world, with more than 7.3 trillion euros under management in Luxembourg. And to give an answer to your question, I think, especially in these times, the world needs growth, and the world needs no disruption of international trade. And that's what we in Luxembourg try to promote as Luxembourgers, as a huge financial hub. We try to promote it within the European Union, to have a deeper European Union, a deeper integration, but also a European Union which is not a fortress Europe. A European Union which is open to other regions in the world, and especially with the Middle East, the US, also in these times, and also the Asian region. So the world needs growth, we need no disruption of international trade, and we need, as just highlighted, cross-border investments. And that's the most important thing, also in my personal view as Minister of Finance from Luxembourg.
How have you used finance to enact and promote global progress?
I think the Luxembourgish financial and banking sector is based on three pillars. The first one is banking, insurance, and reinsurance. Luxembourg serves as a gateway for international financial institutions coming from all over the world, from the US, which is our natural ally. We have also the 7 biggest Chinese banks in Luxembourg. We have banks from Switzerland, we have banks from the UK, and we have banks from the Latin American continent. The second pillar is investment fund industry. Luxembourg is well known for it. We are front leader in that area with cross-border financial investments in more than 80 countries in the world. And we invest also, and a lot, in so-called ESG funds, that means which are green and social compliant. And the third pillar is FinTech. FinTech is the future of finance. And therefore, I attend also this huge event here in Dubai. Why is FinTech so important? Because I believe that digitalization of assets, digitalization of bonds will be the future for finance. And I come just, yesterday I attended a meeting of the so-called Eurogroup, which is a meeting of the finance ministers of the Eurozone. And we had an important discussion about how to implement rather quickly, especially in these times, the so-called digital euro, which will not replace the euro, the traditional euro, as a currency, but which will be complementary to this. And that's quite important. And therefore, in Luxembourg, we advocate for a strong regulation, for example, blockchain legislation. We have also implemented the so-called MiCA regulation, which comes from the European Union, in order to show that we have also the technology in order to be complementary to the first two pillars I just mentioned.
What's your argument, Mr. Minister, to push for a digital euro? And on the other side of the argument, what are you hearing in terms of, no, we should not do this?
There are some fears that the digital euro could harm the liquidities of traditional banks. But we discussed yesterday, and there was a clear message to the European Commission, which has to set up the legal framework. It is up to the European Central Bank in Frankfurt to set up the technology, but it is on the European Commission in order to have set up rather quickly a legal framework. And that is something that harms. And also we have to put some thresholds of deposits, because otherwise that could harm the stability of the financial system. But we need this digital euro. Why? Because if you are speaking about tokenization, if you are speaking about cryptocurrencies, if you are speaking about transactions which should be operated within milliseconds of time, and also considering what has happened the last 3 months on a geopolitical and also geo-economical level, I believe, and that was also highlighted in Washington alongside the IMF spring meetings, that this could also be the hour of Europe, the hour of the European financial institutions, and therefore there is a strong push in order to have implemented this digital euro as quick as possible.
What are the steps, Mr. Minister, to implement a digital euro?
The steps are, of course, to have a legal framework, which is applying to all the countries of the Eurozone. That means the member states of the European Union which have the euro as their currency, but also to cover other member states who have not yet the euro, because we try to operate in an inclusive manner. And therefore, that is the legal framework, which is now drawn up by the European Commission, and then it has to be endorsed by the European Council. That's the legal system in Europe, and then, of course, it has to be implemented in a technical way.
How long do you think it'll be, Mr. Minister?
That's a good question. I would say it could be possible that by the end of the year or during the first quarter of next year, the legal framework would be there, and then you have to add, let's say, 9 months to 12 months in order to implement the digital euro. So, in a nutshell, from today on, within less than 24 months, so less than 2 years.
Competitively, what does that mean for currencies from China and the United States?
Of course, euro has then also a strong currency, but it is not to isolate euro. It gives a further tool for a whole region with more than 550 million citizens, and also to have a closer cooperation with the UK. But it is also there in order to serve other regions in the world. And when I'm speaking from Luxembourg as an international financial hub, of course, we will also take profit of a digital euro. So you will have a currency beside the dollar. You will have a currency which has the full tools in order that it is enabled to develop it, and also to develop the economy and the financial sector in Europe, because you are aware about this report, Draghi report, Letter report, because they make recommendations in order to strengthen the competitiveness of the European Union, and the digital euro is part of this whole package.
You have worked on public-private collaborations within FinTech, within the spaces of creating new models. What have you learned along the way about how to implement and build those collaborations in the public-private sectors?
I think that's one of the keys of the success of Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a small country, but we apply a policy of small paths. That means when financial institutions, international financial institutions, come to Luxembourg in order to set up their European headquarters, and there are many, they have a reliable country with political stability, with sound public finances. We have a debt below 25% currently, with a AAA credit rating, with social cohesion, all which Dubai has also, and the UAE has also. And we have built our system on a strong relationship between the private sector and the public officials. Leaders of international financial institutions, they have access to the departments of my ministry and also to the minister himself. And therefore we act on partnerships with Luxembourg for Finance, which is a promotional agency of the Luxembourgish Banking and Finance Center, and we do the same with the so-called LUFT, Luxembourg House of Financial Technologies. And the general manager, he sits in the first row, is Nazir Zubairi, and we have more than 280 really promising financial institutions in the fintech sector that we have in Luxembourg, and we have also a conducive environment. I have set up an action plan for startups with tax incentives, with a stock option regime, and we are really pushing this together with sustainable finance, because we believe that sustainable finance and fintech are the future, and therefore we seek also the collaboration, a deeper collaboration with Middle East and especially with the UAE.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things. Very quickly here, when you're looking at when private is leading too much or public is leading too much, what are one of the indicators that you are looking at to determine whether we have the right balance or we are imbalanced in terms of one or the other pushing too much, if you will, forcing the square peg and the round hole?
I would say it is not one or the other. It is one together with the other. And especially in the area of sustainable finance, the Luxembourgish government pushes the so-called blended finance. That means that we invest public money in such projects together with multinational banks. Luxembourg is a member of all multinational banks in the world, and with the invest of public money, we de-risk investments and we try to leverage private capital. Because when you need growth, you have to leverage private capital in every area. And that was also said alongside the spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank in Washington. Why? Because when you need growth, you have to involve private capital on every levels. And I think, therefore, finance is a force for good, and we have to strive, like the UAE, for innovation. And blended finance for us is kind of innovation, especially if we want to push and to promote sustainable finance, which is not only green finance, but it is also blue finance. Blue finance involving everything which is related to water. That is for us. So we need private sector and public sector and a close cooperation between both, and not the one or the other.
I think it's May, isn't it? We're in the month of May. What a year 2026 has been. I'm sure many of you are looking down at your watches and your calendars. A lot of things probably surprised many of us in this room. What surprised you the most, first off?
I was surprised by the discussions and the race on tariffs we had the last 3 months. But I'm quite happy, and especially the latest news, that I think we are going towards a good direction, heading towards a good direction and de-escalating, because that's the most important thing. We have to work together. We have to work together within the different regions, but we have to work together on a global level.
Yeah, it's, one analogy is that globally you saw a group of ships sailing very close together, and then in the last 5 months, the ships had to start going alone. How much closer will they come back together, if at all?
I would say that they will come close together. Why? Because I come back to my first statement. The world needs growth. And I think in the head of many political leaders, you can only achieve growth by working together, by avoiding that there is a fragmentation of trade. And I think that's a common responsibility global leaders have on a political level, but also in the area of financial institutions.
Well, you know, one of the things that happens when systems are stressed, as you know better than I, you're the expert here, is that you start to see the things that you knew were always right there. You know, it's kind of like that pimple on your forehead that was always there, but you're ignoring it. And then one day you go, okay, we got to take care of that pimple. When this happened in the last 5 months, there are things that were there always, opportunities to change. What will be changed, do you think? When we regather here in a year, what will actually have changed because of what has been stressed in the system? Because now it's obvious, right? It's right there in front of us.
I can speak on behalf of a Luxembourgish finance minister and also a finance minister of the European Union. I would say during the last 2 or 3 months, Europe has found to itself, because we are commonly aware about the fact that we need to have sound public finances. We need to strengthen our competitiveness inside Europe, and therefore we need to act and react quickly. We need to get rid of red tape in Brussels. We need to work on new financial tools and to adapt them to current needs, which is, for example, securitization. We need to work on stability of a whole financial center. That means that we have to keep on track banks, insurance and reinsurance companies. So I would say Europe will be more focused on itself. Europe is aware that, the European Union is aware that despite the Brexit, we have to work also closer with the UK. And that is for me quite important, that we have to keep up the transatlantic dialogue with the US. And as Luxembourgish finance minister, I would say the most important for me is that my country, with its huge financial and banking center, should become even more open to the rest of the world, serve as a gateway to Europe for financial institutions from all over the world, and especially here from the Middle East. I think that's my duty, and I would like to show that you're welcome in Luxembourg. That's a challenge for me, and that's a challenge for my country and for my government.
You mentioned this earlier. You're here in the UAE. You've had meetings already. And you've likened the UAE to being a brother or a sister, if you will, of Luxembourg, and for many reasons, right? During this time where the sinews have been cut in many places, the connective tissue has been cut, one cannot help but think that it is those that are agile, those that have the resources, in other words, speed, right? Those who have the resources and can move quickly, that the UAE looks primed to take advantage of the new opportunities that have resulted from the last 5 months. As a brother or sister, if you will, because of many of the characteristics that you just mentioned of the UAE, what might you see is the opportunity here?
I would say that both regions, Europe, Luxembourg, and the UAE, can work together. We must work on cross-border investments. We have many opportunities for sovereign wealth funds to invest in Luxembourg because it is a stable country. Taxation is rather low. And I would say we have to know much more each about another. And therefore, it's also my proposal that we should deepen this collaboration and to set up a kind of, let's say, a financial forum between the UAE and Luxembourg where we can meet between regulators, bank associations, investment fund associations, stock exchange. We have also such kind of collaboration with Singapore. And I met together with my chief, which is the Grand Duke of Luxembourg, our Royal Highness, together with the President of Singapore, and we agreed to have, let's say, a structured dialogue, which takes place 1 year in Singapore and the other year in Luxembourg. And my proposal would be to the UAE authorities in order to have also such a framework in order to exchange and also to have an exchange of best practices. And this is the beginning of a new collaboration, a football collaboration between Luxembourg and the UAE.
Mr. Minister, we only have 30 more seconds, so I thought I'd talk about something that I know is core to what you care about. That's the weather. So Luxembourg in Brussels, for all of you who have been there, you've probably seen more sun in the Antarctic potentially, or less, whatever the word might be. It makes London actually look like a summer vacation. And now that you're here, I do want to talk about the weather because we're looking at cross-border opportunities, right, which has been your thematic here. What does the weather look like for the next 5 years? When we're thinking of fintech and the cross-border opportunities that you were just underlining, specifically with the UAE, Singapore, and Luxembourg, what would you say?
I cannot sell you sea, beach, and temperatures above 35 degrees, but I can sell you a lovely country with blue sky, temperatures around 20 and 25 degrees, and a very good French and Italian as well as Chinese cuisine. So feel well in Luxembourg and see you next in my country.
So you're saying it's sunny. All right, that's great. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you so much for having me.